A recent Gallup poll just released reveals the highest percentage we've ever seen in this country of Americans saying that pornography is morally acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
Something like 43%.
Mm-hmm.
And so in a culture that is saturated by the sexual revolution, where people are claiming their own physical autonomy from God,
Mm-hmm.
in a culture where women predominantly are objectified, whether it's in the Hollywood movie or whether it's in pornography and the acceptance of it, what advice would you give to the young Christian man, or not even young, just the Christian man, who is being bombarded, assaulted with temptations? Wherever you go, you don't even have to search for it. You just step outside your front door.
Yeah.
What advice do you give to the Christian seeking to live a pure life in such a culture?
Mm-hmm. Well, first and foremost, I would say that there's a couple of things you need to remember. To the unmarried man, I would say these words. You want to make sure that you have stored up for your future bride your love for her, and that you don't want to in any way tarnish your wedding day. You don't want to tarnish your wedding night with her. And furthermore, beyond your wedding day and wedding night, beyond the honeymoon, pornography is something that tends to stick with a person. It lasts. It sticks around with these images like hard drives on a computer. The cache, if you will, stays with an individual. And so you don't want that to ruin your relationship with your wife. And so make sure that you guard yourself there. Second of all, if we are to pursue holiness and purity, blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God, then we want to make sure that we are guarding our hearts against all of the temptations, specifically those temptations within, pornography and this pornographic culture. So the internet, once years ago, you had to go into some gas station, buy gas, and then ask for a certain magazine behind the counter, and they would give it to you maybe in a black bag. You'd see people walking out with their bag, and it might have alcohol in it or, some pornographic magazine. But with the digital revolution, it has fueled the sexual revolution. And we have, images that are free of charge on Google Images or whatever else, when people can just type anything that they want to in a search engine, and within less than 1 second have just an enormous amount of these types of images. You need to guard yourself. So I would encourage, really good software to monitor yourself, to be accountable to those things, to keep you from seeing those images. There's really good tools out there today, like Disney Circle is something that you can just plug up, and it will help monitor your home or your office. You can monitor each device individually. So if you have a home where you have children that are in the home, or if it's just you as a single guy, then you can monitor what you see. There's filter services there. And that's just one of many that are available on the market today. So I would really encourage someone to watch what you're allowing yourself to take in through electronic devices, smartphones, tablets, computers. So that's to the unmarried, you might say. I would say much of the same thing to someone who is married, but I would say that you need to guard your home. Like, you need to really guard not just yourself, but your children, your grandchildren. Who comes into your home has an open Wi-Fi password to your home. Make sure that you know what your children are watching. So YouTube, Google, for instance, if you're not aware of those technologies, you need to be very aware of the fact that you can serve up pornography on a smartphone, so a child can be watching pornography in your home on the internet that you're paying for, if you don't know what you're doing, if you don't know how to monitor that. So be very careful. And then as far as theology is concerned, we need to have a good understanding of what marriage is. And we need to be pure in our eyes and our desire for our bride. And so if the church is the bride of Christ, then we need to love our wives as Christ loves the church. And so we need to be completely devoted to our spouse. We need to be completely devoted to our wife. And so if we're looking at pornography, we need to remember what the scriptures teach. That if you're even looking on a woman with lust in your heart, that's considered to be adultery. And so we need to do what the scriptures teach about mortifying the flesh. That old language of the Puritans, that old language of like the King James Bible, when we hear that mortify the flesh. Well, we don't have that in, say, the ESV today. But the language itself really drives from the Greek to what it actually means. It means to do war with your sin. And so I give the analogy from time to time, but if I were sitting in my home watching television and I heard something on the floor and I looked out and there was a rattlesnake in my living room with my children, and I have a 4-year-old and he's just playing around the floor, you think I'm just going to, what are the chances that I'm just going to sit there and say, well, I'll take care of that later? No, I'm really going to do war with this snake, this serpent that could potentially take the life of my child. And so if that's how we would treat a serpent that might bite us with venom, then why would we approach sin with some lighter heart type of scenario? So we need to mortify the flesh, fight against the temptations of this sexual revolution. And then I would just simply add just one more thing. I would say the feminist movement years ago did a lot of damage to women. This idea that the feminist movement was liberating women is an outright lie of Satan himself. If we're honest, the feminist movement harmed women. It turned women into objects to be purchased in stores or on the internet for men to play with. And when we take women and we turn them into some type of material object to be purchased in a consumerism type of mindset by depraved men, that's harmful to the dignity of what God intended when he created women in the first place. And so that's what pornography does to women, but not just to women, to men as well. But by and large, men are they're the driving force behind making pornography successful.